Welcome to Horror in Detail. Are you ready to embark on a chilling journey into the realms of darkness? The mysterious and the bone-chilling world of horror stories. On this channel, we are dedicated to unraveling the most terrifying tales that will send shivers down your spine. First story. I care for cryptids. Just to be clear, I'm not actually certified in caring for these creatures. I don't work in a pet store like most people who care for cryptids do. I just live in a house in the woods of a state that happens to house multiple cryptids. To start off, I'm a 24-year-old female who lives in the woods. It may seem scary to some people, but I honestly prefer it. It's calm, quiet, and I'm alone most of the time. The house I live in is 2 floors with plenty of space for what I now use it for. To give a quick view, the first floor has 1 bedroom, a bathroom, a kitchen, living room, and sunroom. The second has 2 bedrooms, bathrooms, and another living space. I'm sure you guys would prefer to hear about cryptids though, so here's the story of the first time I cared for a cryptid. It was a dark Tuesday night. The woods were quiet. I was sitting in the living room downstairs, reading a Stephen King book. The clock ticked from the corner, or the room. I didn't know the time. I had up to have a small snack when I heard a loud snort. Or maybe it was a cry. I wasn't sure at the time. I brushed it off, believing it was the wildlife. I pulled out some chips and water. I was back in the living room before a minute has passed. But the sound happened again. Only louder. It sounded like it had moved with me. Once again, I brushed it off, thinking it was an animal smelling the food. But it kept happening. It sounded like a cry of pain and hunger. I couldn't keep ignoring it. So I pulled out a gun from my safe and tucked it in my waistband. I crossed the house to the window. I heard it. I peeked out the blinds. I tumbled backwards, breathing hard. What the hell was that? A dying man? Once I gathered my composure, I looked out the window again. Only this time it saw me. It growled and lunged at the window. I stumbled back, but I didn't hear a thump. I peeked back out. At this point, I was more interested than scared. It was laying on its back trying to scramble to its front. I saw blood pouring from its side. At this point, everything kinda blurred. I know I helped the cryptid, but I don't remember how I did. Only that when I woke up, it was on my couch in a deep slumber. When the cryptid woke up, it didn't attack me. It seemed more domestic than anything. It pattered around on the floor and even ate some bacon. There were bandages wrapped around its stomach, so I could only assume I helped it. I never thought cryptids were so domestic until I met one. I parted ways with the cryptid later on in the week. However, it still visits. I even installed a dog door so it could come in. Now though, just anything comes in. I've met many cryptids. The one that visited me first was a skinwalker. It was horrific the first time, but I've met so many I'm used to it. It's a ride, but I'm willing to share more stories. I even have contacts as of last week to help me feed and take care of them. Second story. This story was shared by you/Matheson Curator. There's a tiny building in the oil fields outside Bakersfield that I will avoid for the rest of my life. If you've ever driven between SoCal and NorCal, you know exactly the long stretch of nowhere I'm talking about. You take Interstate 5 with the tourists and the truckers, up the Grapevine and out into 1,000 miles of California farmland, past Bakersfield, avoiding Fresno, as one should. But if you do this drive enough times, like, for example, if you live in Los Angeles and your family lives in San Francisco, you start to get bored and look for things to do along the way. My mistake was getting bored. I have this book called Weird California about odd places and bizarre stuff, and a lot of them are out here in the farmland. This area just kind of breeds weirdness in people. Last time I made the drive, it was the world's largest box of raisins at the Sun-Maid headquarters in Kingsburg, which was fine, but honestly just a big box. But this time, I wanted to try something spookier. Something more fun, at least. In a place called Elk Hills, west of I-5 and 119, you'll find a gigantic oil field, machines pumping away all across the desert hills. Here's the closest I could get. Google Earth doesn't allow you inside the actual oil field grounds, which should have been a warning sign. Didn't notice the doubling glitch on the oil pump until now. What the book says is that, in the middle of this oil field, there's a tiny windowless building with a radio antenna. You take a scanner near it, and you can hear a voice reciting numbers and letters over and over, different every time. These things should be in the middle of Siberia, but here's one just off the highway, in a lonely oil field, just outside Bakersfield. California has its own special little numbers station. That's worth a visit, right? I get the only equipment I have, a cheap scanner I got on Amazon, because I live in a big city called Los Angeles engulfed in frantic chaos every other day, and I thought, who knows, maybe something like this would be useful. But I digress. I load up my girlfriend's car and start driving, heading north, and I make it to Elk Hills in about 2 hours. The oil field doesn't even have a full fence around it. If you're trying to get in, you can get in. It's practically an invitation. There's nobody here, no cars, no workers, no security, just a ton of oil pumps churning away and some lost chickens pecking around, wandering over from the farmland. And then, there it is. At the top of the next hill. Tiny windowless building with a radio antenna. Chain link fence around it. Boxed in. I turn on the scanner and I hear numbers right away. Echo Alpha Charlie incoming, over. Echo Alpha Charlie incoming, over. Copy. First thought is, holy shit, I got something. The big dumb Mulder and Scully instincts come alive. I can't help it. I floor it. I'm driving up the hill, and the voice comes back on the scanner. Same guy, same tone. Echo Alpha Charlie incoming, request to execute. Over. I'm lifting my foot off the gas before I even realize it. Request to execute aren't the kinds of words I'm expecting to hear. I pull over. I get out. I leave the car. I'm looking up, scanning the horizon. Can't explain why. Don't know what I'm looking for. A helicopter? Spy plane? Incoming. What? All I hear are chickens pecking and oil pumps churning, a low industrial hum in every direction. The voice speaks at the same moment. I look back at the car and I realize it. Echo Alpha Charlie stopped. Request to execute. Over. Staring back at me, a California license plate. 5EAC 279. The voice repeats. Echo Alpha Charlie stopped. Request to execute target. Over. I'm moving. I'm back in the car. I'm hitting the gas. I'm trying not to freak out. Target is advancing. Request to execute. Over. I slam on the brakes. Violent U-turn. Back the way I came. Target is aggressive. Request to execute. Over. I pull over. I'm panicking. I'm out of the car, raising my hands, not even sure where to look or what to say, just hoping to. Target is surrendering. Over. Am I? I guess I am. Who am I surrendering to? I've never felt such silence before, until the voice returns, and I know disappointment when I hear it. Copy. Disengaging. Recalling unit. Unit? Noise across the road. Something in the hills, just over the crest. Could be chickens. Could be my nerves. Target appears to understand. I look up the road, to the tiny windowless building on the next hill, watching over. Target is ordered to have a nice day. The scanner goes quiet with a squawk. I get in and I keep driving and I'm gone. Next time I'm taking the interstate, whatever that place is, I'm staying out of range. Third story. This story was shared by you/dogs34567. I'm a cryptid hunter and my last mission was in Nahanni Valley. So a little about myself before I get into the story. My name is Hector Roanoke and I've been a cryptid hunter for about 20 years now. I have an extensive military background. I enlisted into the U.S. Navy at the age of 18. My job was FMF corpsman for a platoon of Marine Raiders. They taught me everything from shooting and fighting to the basic survival skills that I still use to this day. Eventually, my time in the service came to an end after 6 years due to personal reasons. Now, before I tell you about what happened in Nahanni Valley, I must tell you I've hunted every cryptid you could possibly name. I got the job through some connections. It was easy with my military background. Even though the first job almost made me quit on the spot, it's hard being a rookie and hunting an ancient Wendigo who has the strength of 10 men and the attitude of a pissed-off bear who's been awakened from hibernation. The pay was good though, so that made up for it. Anyways, I was given the task of going on an expedition into Nahanni Valley because out of the last group of hunters who were 6 strong, only 2 made it out, and one of those regrettably didn't include my friend Saul. Me and Saul had known each other since I was in the military. We were battle buddies, and there was no way I was going to accept that he was gone, so I volunteered for the job, and I was given it without second thought. Now, I'm sure some of you have heard the kind of mysterious, unexplainable things that go on in Nahanni Valley, from headless men wandering the forest to outright sighting of ancient dinosaurs. The expedition was to last only 7 days and no more because of safety reasons, they said. But I didn't care. I was determined to find Saul and the other missing hunters. On the first day, I arrived at the valley and I started to make shelter in a cave by freshwater source. Everything was going well. At sunset, I started to hear weird noises like the wailing of a woman mixed with the call of a rabbit. At first, I thought it was a skinwalker and I wasn't worried one bit. But something was off about the way it was wailing. Skinwalkers cannot mimic animals and humans at the same time. The wailing kept getting closer, so I had to cover in some nearby foliage. What I saw shook me on a spiritual level. The creature was tall and black, not just the skin, but it was like a walking shadow. It had very long extremities with sharpest antlers I've ever seen mounted on its head, but the most chilling part was its eye sockets were empty, but gave off a red hue like a flame in the dark. Its hair reached well past its shoulders. I quickly recognized what it was: a stick Indian. If it wasn't for me picking up on what it was, this definitely would have been a bad fight to pick. I laid still until the thing passed over me. After it passed, I made a knot to myself to keep my guard up. After sunset, if stick Indians are here, I'd hate to see what else could be lurking around here. After my experience with the skin Indian, I decided to pack up and move camp to another location. I hiked about 3 miles down the river and found myself a nice spot by a fallen tree. I set up camp, went hunting, and started cooking the game I had caught later that day. I soon went to sleep. I woke up about 4 hours early and left my tent to take a leak. After I finished, I got done bleeding the snake. I heard a twig snap in the distance. I quickly ran to my camp and grabbed my hunting tomahawk to confront whatever was making a noise. This laid in the woods. That was when I saw it. It was a man, but this was no ordinary man. He was about 6 feet 6 inches and fit as a fiddle. I could recognize him from anywhere. It was one of the missing hunters. I put my tomahawk on my waist and approached him, but I noticed he was facing with his back to me. Then it dawned on me that not only was his back pointing towards me, but his head was missing. His was walking headless around the forest. The sight filled me with anger, sadness, and fear at the same time. I didn't know what I was dealing with. I slowly crept away and kept a big fire all night with my tomahawk in on hand and my gun in the other all night. What I saw that night really made me realize that I was in foreign territory. I decided to go for a hike around the area to get a better idea of the landscape. The area was beautiful. The birds were chirping. I hiked until sunset and went back to camp to rest and eat. After eating, I noticed that my campsite had footprints all around it. But these weren't normal-sized footprints. They were miniature, no bigger than a 4-year-old's footprints. I noticed one of the tents shaking. I readied my tomahawk, and when I opened it, a short creature no more than 3 feet tall jumped out at me and scurried into the forest. Damn near gave me a heart attack, but I couldn't help to laugh. I went to sleep laughing after that experience. Freaking little people, they're not dangerous, but they sure are noisy. I woke up at the crack of dawn to go fishing. I got tired of eating rabbit and pheasant meat every night, so I tried to mix it up a little. I put some rabbit foot on the line to see if I'd get lucky and bag a big meaty fish to cook tonight over the fire. After a few hours, I got a bite. I tried to reel it in, but it wouldn't budge. Thought I was snagged on a log until all the line of the rod was gone. In an instant, something in the water was stirring. I decided to take cover behind a big rock and watched a monster of a serpent breach the water's surface. I wanted to say it was an agapogo, but something about the spines were different. and this one seemed to be a juvenile. I stayed behind the rock until it was gone just in case, and moved up 5 miles downstream to fish there just in case the bastard was still lurking around. I caught a few salmon, so the trip wasn't disappointing. After seeing the general layout of the area, I started looking for clues indicating what happened to the team. My mission took me 8 miles into the valley. It was truly a beautiful sight to behold: crystal clear waters, beautiful plants, and some of the most beautiful flowers you'll ever see. I came upon the destroyed camp. Nothing immediately stood out to me until I found 2 human bodies. They were mangled beyond human comprehension in what looked like an act of brutality I've never seen in my life. I nearly started crying thinking about the pain they went through before dying. I gave them a proper burial and prayed to God the same thing didn't happen to Saul. Eventually returned to camp with a heavy heart and a feeling that every move I made was being carefully calculated by something. I slept with my gun loaded with a wolfsbane round in the chamber that night. Wolfsbane is hard to find, but boy does it pack a punch against the majority of cryptids out there. I've come to the realization that I'm being followed by something smart. I went to the nearby river to wash myself, and when I came back to my campsite it was destroyed. I thank God I took my weapons with me just in case that Augie I saw wanted a piece of me. The thing that destroyed my campsite left footprints bigger than any humans I've ever seen. It was definitely of humanoid origin. But how human really worried me. Usually humanoid creatures such as Bigfoot and the Sasquatch don't mess with humans unless you are in their territory. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't being territorial, it was trying to make an example. It looked to be more out of rage than to protect something you own. I pondered what it could, but eventually I gave up and sharpening my tomahawk in case the bastard came back. After the encounter, I made a makeshift camp out of some foliage and branches around the forest floor and started a campfire. I knew the bastard was waiting for me to go to sleep, so I spent all day prepping. I'm gonna be honest with you, in all my years of cryptid hunting, I've never seen anything like this. This was the night that made me, a seasoned cryptid hunter, fear for his life. After all day prepping, I was sitting at the campfire when I saw it. I've never seen anything like it. It was tall, about 8.5 feet. It looked human, but it is all wrong. It didn't look like a regular human. It looked like a cross between the ancient race of Gigantopithecus and an ancient human. Its burning amber eyes that flowed in the dark, looking at me with such hate and anger. I could feel the killing intent exhuming from its body. I hurried to my feet with my gun and tomahawk in hand, and it threw something at me that landed at my feet and smiled. I kicked it over with my foot to inspect it, and it was the fucking Skin Indian this thing had killed. Then Skin Indian, and threw its head at me as some sick display of power. I looked back up at it, and it was sadistically smiling at me. I've never felt so much fear in my life. I stood my ground waiting for it to make a move, and I noticed that it wasn't advancing anymore. I looked at the fire and then at it, and its expression fell. To this day, I don't know what that thing was, but I thank God that I had a big fire going. I took a seat, and it did the same at the forest's edge, and we stared at each other, me not letting the fire go out and it not willing to advance with the fire roaring. We stared at each other until the break of dawn, and then at the blink of an eye it was gone. Quickly I left that place and told my superiors what happened, and they told me that there were stories of the Nakani wild men of the valley of the Nahani, and that I was lucky to make it out of there alive. I never did find Saul. One day I will go back there, but until now I just thank God that I'm alive to tell the tale. I'd tell you more stories about my career, but I'll have to wrap it up here. I just got a call about going on a mission with some agents to investigate Skinwalker Ranch. If I make it back alive, I'll tell you the details about that hunt too. Until then, farewell and be safe. Out there, you never know what really lurks in the deep unexplored regions of this earth. Fourth story. This story was shared by you/user_identification_Z. Walt Disney World Suit Rules and Protocols. I'm not good with storytelling, so I'll just hop right in. I work as a security guard at Walt Disney World, or as I call it, the most demonic place in the multiverse. I used to work in the police force, but got let go due to budget cuts. I loved working there, so I was pretty distraught about the whole thing. I thought if I worked at the happiest place in the world, I could recover. I know that's a shit reason, but downing 2 bottles of Jack Daniels does that. So I filled out an application and boom, I got the job. If I wasn't drunk as hell, I would not have made that mistake. When I got there, they escorted me through some underground tunnels to a pure white room with a table and 1 chair. They handed me a list and told me to read it and sign it. Here's that list. Hello, and welcome to your career at Walt Disney World, the happiest place on Earth. Below are the supernatural and unexplained intervention team, suits rules, and protocols. Need to know items. Primary weapon. Pistol that looks like a prop to keep the magic, but fires microtrank darts. Secondary weapon. 12-gauge rock salt buckshot shotgun, not to be seen by guests unless there is a Class 4 emergency. Intercontainment division, entertainment plus containment, costumed suits that lead Class AF anomalies and cryptids into the tunnels below the park. They are costumed so everyone doesn't question it and thinks it's part of the magic. There are 3 tunnel systems. TA1. Escort distraught families and lost children through these to get to the family center without breaking the magic. Does not connect with other tunnel systems. TA2. Leads to interrogation chamber. Does not connect with other tunnel systems. TB. Anomaly/cryptid containment and locker rooms. This is offstage, so this is where all spare parts, replacements, tools, weapons, and abnormalities are kept. While all suits have their own primary weapon, the shotguns are grab one and go. The only rooms are the locker rooms. Do what you need and then get out fast. You won't enjoy encountering them down there. This system connects to TX. TX, a giant underground maze designed to keep IT out of sight. Only connections are feeding tubes in the transport elevator. We let IT out when the park is closed for experimentation. We feed IT, otherwise it will claw open the steel doors and wreak havoc on the open park. Connects to TB. 1. Keep your scanner on you at all times during your shift. If you see an animatronic or costumed actor that looks out of place, scan it. If a negative reading comes up, call in backup. If it makes hostile advances, trank it. 2. If you see a ring of mushrooms exceeding 5 feet in diameter, grab a bag of rune-inscribed rocks. Place 3 in center of ring. Don't look back for 5 seconds at minimum. If guests mention tiny Tinkerbells, use 6 runed rocks and take the guests to the interrogation chamber. 3. If you see weird markings anywhere, call intercontainment. They will send a Tinkerbell to sprinkle pixie dust/salt around the area. 4. If you happen to find a guest in TB, get them out as quickly as possible. They like fresh meat. 5. If someone complains about a fish-like creature in any of the water rides, discreetly pour cyanide into the water. Close ride for 1 hour. 6. If someone says anything about ghosts, spirits, or strange sounds, close the attraction and notify the chief. Do not enter unless we say. If the out of place is in the open, call intercontainment and be ready to provide backup. 7. If the music stops at all, radio in code 13Z. If it comes back and it's not the same song, then someone bit the dust in the control room. Get a shotgun and proceed to the control room. If the music does not return in 10 seconds, clear the park. 8. If any of the characters start talking in a very high or low pitch, call intercontainment. They will have a whole show plan to fool the guests in order to get the thing. 9. If any character faints, then they are employees in a costume. All employees need a 30-minute break for every 2 hours spent in 85F or higher. If the character becomes more lively in the heat, refer to Rule 1. 10. If anyone has a shirt that says Disney Security, you are authorized to throw them in TB and beat the shit out of them. Once incapacitated, throw into TX feeding tube. Run. 11. If one of the cryptids gets to a guest, trank the cryptid and call code 6H. This code locks down the section of the park in which you are in. Calmly walk to the nearest TB entrance. There are always amnesia gas grenades right by the concrete inner door. 12. No one whatsoever is to go to Old Discovery Island. That's where they come from, and they will kill anyone on sight. TB has a transport system that ships any cryptids back to that place. 13. If any of the characters start bleeding out of their eyes, call the chief. Run and yell at the guests to run. PR will handle the guests. 14. If any guest mentions a specific abnormality, take them to the interrogation chamber. The following is Siren Protocol. A. Siren 1. Audible only to security. Demon trap activated. Grab a shotgun if you aren't busy. B. Siren 2. Audible only to all staff. Exorcist is coming/exorcism ongoing. Distract guests with free stuff if need be. C. Siren 3. Audible to everyone. Class 4 emergency. This could be anything from a dirty bomb to severe abnormalities to outright evacuation. D. Siren 4. Audible to everyone. IT has escaped. IT will likely be on ground level, so getting a shotgun shouldn't be too hard. We also have a couple of SWAT divisions stationed here, so IT might be dealt with before you get a shotgun. However, your job is to deal with the class staff cryptids, not IT. And lastly, if there are 2 Mickeys out, radio in code 666 XC. This will result in Siren 4 sounding. Failure to abide will result in immediate disciplinary action. Signature. What the hell? I thought I got a security job, not wrangling demons. Then it hit me. I did this while I was drunk. Well, shit. Rather than say, hey, I was drunk when I did this, I just signed the stupid thing. Great. We'll start you out shadowing the chief for a couple weeks, then you're on your own. Any questions? Yeah. Where did these things come from in the first place? We don't really know. They first showed up after we closed down the old Discovery Island. All we can do is protect the guests. We tried clearing the park long-term once, but it didn't go too well. We had to fish people's insides out of the lagoon when we found them. Oh, okay then. Those 3 weeks shadowing the chief really put my job in perspective. On the first day, I expected some gruff, feeding donuts, but the chief was actually a somewhat attractive woman. Of course, we were all business, and I learned real quick that this place is hell. On day 4, we had suit radio into the intercontainers that Donald Duck's voice suddenly got really low. The park has a plethora of cameras, so we found it pretty quick. I will never unhear that sound. I asked why the suit didn't use his scanner, but the chief said that DD was in a completely normal area, so the suit didn't suspect a thing. We only had 3 more experiences in those weeks. After that, I was on my own. I will never forget what happened on my first day alone. I was on patrol around the Space Mountain ride when this unholy screaming came from the ride. Now, we have to do our best to not break the magic, but this was pretty obvious, so we had to play it off. This 40-something guy tears out of the ride entrance and fucking sprints straight for the park exit. I played it off by saying, don't sniff pixie dust too much, kids, and then the chief called. Workman, my last name, please close the ride and investigate. Sure thing, ma'am. I closed it down and went inside. I used my flashlight to navigate, because the lights are complicated. I saw something in a corner. Sorry, sir, but this ride is what the FUCK. The something I thought was a person turned out to be Goofy with a maw of sharp teeth. Goofy had sharp teeth. A cartoon character had teeth made for eating meat. Yup, Eugia, said the abomination in the lowest, most demonic voice I have ever heard, worse than the time with Donald. Luckily, I knew what protocol was for this incident, but then I noticed something else. The cartoon character with a carnivore's teeth and Lucifer's voice was bleeding from its eyes. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the chief materializes with a shotgun and blasts that thing's face. There were more loud bangs, but they came from outside. Intercontainment's out there right now distracting the guests. I would have left it to you, but sharp teeth is something we've never seen before, so I did what I could. Let's clear out so they can transport it back to the island. Hold up, I asked. Is it dead? Nope. These things don't die. They just reanimate. Oh, in which case, let's move. Speaking of which, how'd you get here? I used the TB system, and that is what happened that day. I could probably write a whole novel about my 10+ years there. Well, geez, I didn't expect this to blow up to the point that it did. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the post. I have a good amount of friends at this job, including but not limited to Comrade Igor. He and I are very close friends. He immigrated over here from Russia when he was 3, so he pretty much grew up here. We make jokes all the time like, "De comrade, when you strap minigun to dog, enemy not run because cute." He worked here for years before I showed up. The chief/Michaelia, Mac, she's really friendly and treats her underlings more like equals than bossing them around. She intentionally took the job of chief of security in order to protect people from these demons, because she knows what it's like being cornered by one of them. Legend has it that she is one of the few people to have seen IT. And I asked her, IT is not Walt himself, you/wolf_of_WV. IT is actually Mickey, or some twisted and foul manifestation of him. She believes that IT told Walt to build the park so IT had a good hunting ground, but there is no evidence, she just heard it. Steven is full of hate to these things. When he was visiting here at age 5, he saw his mom and dad get slaughtered by Minnie Mouse. Ever since, he's been making weapons to kill, not incapacitate the cryptids. He works under intercontainment, so his scimitars with pieces of the true cross and the blades don't raise concerns. He is amazing at swordsmanship. I've seen him take out 5 cryptids with one dagger, dipped in holy water, in less than 1 minute. Alright, let's get to some stories. The first one that comes to mind is the time that Igor almost killed a guest. Some kid had gotten lost while exiting the Small World ride. Igor was the closest, so he escorted her through TA1. Well, he meant to, anyway. The girl asked why Elsa was following them while they walked. Do you mean Anna? Elsa is sick, the actress was. This is Workman. All available suits come to redacted section. Code 6H, I repeat, Code 6H, multiple cryptids in section trying to lure kids. Grab a shotgun. Lock the park down. This is the chief. Thanks Workman for saying it for me. All suits listen to what he said. I'll be there in 2 minutes. Suits start to pour out of the TB system with weapons leveled at the creatures. The cryptids started to grab kids. Claws, fangs, etc. started to sprout from their bodies. They were using the kids as hostages. The kids went apeshit, crying, screaming, fainting, going catatonic. I was actually scared. Not for myself, but at the situation. If only the chief was here, she'd... Oh wait, she just arrived. Igor was driving a dune buggy with property of Walt Disney World on it. The chief was standing on the fucking roof with an AR-15. I guess we have those now. She addressed the things. Look, I don't know who or what you are, but if you don't let the kids go right now, then you will be in a shitload of pain. Drop them. They responded as one. Mine, mine, mine. Oh, well that changes every open fire. All 80 suits in the area plus the chief started shooting these things, but the buckshot seemed to do nothing to them. Luckily, the kids weren't injured, but the demon characters would probably fix that. I caught something out of my eye. Steven was going berserk on these things. He had what looked like a machete in both of his hands, cutting them down in a whirlwind of steel. Eventually, the chief called a ceasefire so we didn't accidentally kill him. His holy weapons were the only thing that could incapacitate the vile beings. It took him about 10 minutes to down all of the creatures in the section, during which all of the suits were cheering him on. When the fight was over, the chief got on the intercom for the park. Attention park guests. Due to unforeseeable circumstances, the park is now closed. Please make your way to the front gate. That is all. To all the suits, she said, Workman, Adams, Steven, and Lennon Igor, stay here. Everyone else, begin lockdown procedure A4. She hopped down from the dune buggy and walked over to the costumed actor playing Donald. Without hesitation, she dragged him off the ground and punched him across the face. Listen up, you fat cunt. I'm sorry that nobody told you about the demonic beings that roam here, but you just caused PR a giant-ass headache. If you would have fucking listened to me, then we could have got this whole thing under control, but instead, all of those kids have fucking PTSD. You are fired and blacklisted from this place. If you come back, then you will rehired as live bait. She then turned to the three of us. Igor, thanks for the ride. Josh, me, thanks for letting the other suits know what to do. Steven, I don't even know what to say. All three of your salaries just got a nice $1 million bump. Come over to Club 33 after the park closes. You guys deserve a special thanks/party. I'm typing this up right before I leave for that. I have some particularly good stories for next time. Alright, a lot has happened since the cryptic assault. First off, we are on a more organized schedule. There are 5 people in a team, and there are 50 teams. My team is me, Igor, Steven, new hire Kevin, and the badass/the chief. Kevin is pretty good to be around, although his humor is really dark. I don't blame him, given that the more an individual deals with weird shit, the darker their humor gets. He worked as a sniper in the army, but he became a suit because it pays more. My team works 8 to 8 o'clock with a lunch and dinner break. On Tuesday and Thursday nights, we provide sniper cover for the nightly experiments. Second off, we traded out the rock salt shotguns for AR-15s with holy oil-dipped black tip rounds. Third and final, we brought in a whole team to develop a gas that only affects the creatures to keep them at bay. During a Sunday night experiment, Team A forbailed, my team, Team A, won, split off for the sniper support. I went with Michaelia, still the chief, but it's after hours, so just call me Mac. We were ordered to set up camp close to the old Discovery Island. Look over by the main building on the island. Are those kids? Holy shit, yes they are. In radio, this is the chief. 2 kids spotted at the island. They seem to be 16 to 18 years old. Zooming in, they appear to have video cameras. My guess is that they are vloggers or just retards. Can we get an evac team in there? This is Control. Sorry, can't send a team out as Walt, nickname for Demon Mickey, is particularly difficult today. Shoot a couple shots and defend if need be, but don't waste ammo. They didn't read the signs, not your problem. Okay, we'll do what we can. Josh, see any demon things or near them? They look like boys from up here. Possible Snow White coming for them. It stopped and appears to be hurt. What? I think it's trying to lure them in. That makes some sense, but why would it do that unless found a Gaston stalking them? It's a double attack. I'll get Gaston while you get Snow. Should we fire off a couple of warning shots first? Sure. Okay, bang, 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 bang. The 2 asshats shined a flashlight in our general direction, but they couldn't see us. They just shrugged it off. Idiots. The cryptids seem to be moving faster towards them. Okay, let's engage. I got Snow. Bang. Immediately it dropped to the ground. Mac dropped her target. This is the chief. Targets have taken care of. Trespassers have star OHSHID. A pack of Plutos is converging on them. Mac seemed to pause for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was hollow and sad. Josh, we have to take out the kids. We can't kill all of those things, but we can dash. Yeah, I know. 3, 2, 1. Now. Bang. Bang. Control, this is right. Workman and I are done. While I wish to say that was the end of it, it wasn't. It seems that we were being tormented by some ghost or demon. We would see packs of ghost Plutos just running, or the teens dropping out of nowhere. Nobody could see the anomalies but us. It was almost like the chief and I were being mocked. On Monday, 9 a.m., I was in a black polo while the rest of my team was incognito. This parent and her daughter run up to me crying. The kid was mumbling about something in Small World, something about unnatural arms and legs. Steven showed up and took them to interrogation. The rest of my team went inside the ride. We got a car all to ourselves in order to investigate. Looking back, we should have grabbed weapons first. Nothing eventful happened until we got to the Hawaiian part. Then the ride just stopped. And we sat there. Nothing happened again, but we could all feel this white-hot rage and hatred slowly building in the place. Our radios all went off at the same time, but it seemed off. It sounded like static, but slowly a child screaming in agonizing pain and horror was audible. It slowly got louder to the point where we, a group of professionals, were pressing our hands to get rid of that noise. Gosh, it was so loud. This torture lasted, well, we lost track of time, but it seemed like a couple of hours. It suddenly stopped, the silence almost too loud after the screaming. Me, Kevin, and Igor were all crying, but Mac was just straight catatonic. We followed her gaze. I wish I hadn't. It was a humanoid, but it was pitch black. It seemed like it was walking towards us from 40 feet away. It had arms and legs too long to be anatomically correct. That wasn't the worst part. These demon dog creatures were following it in a twitchy way. The other two went ape, calling in on the radio, but I joined Mac in that stare towards the thing. This next part is really hard to talk about to anyone but Mac. The thing split into two human figures that looked like teenage boys. I almost fainted. Suddenly, it merged back into one form. It took an impossibly long step and stopped outside the fucking boat. It let out the same noise on our radios. I screamed for Igor and Kevin to run while I got Mac, still catatonic. We hauled ass like nobody's business till we were outside of the entrance. We all just broke down, sobbing, hugging each other for like 10 minutes. I thought, oh shit, we broke the magic, but was puzzled to see 5 teams of suits surrounding us. Some blonde chick I didn't know spoke up. You guys have been in there for about 24 hours. That's all I remember before blacking out. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed with my team staring at me. We didn't talk, just exchanged looks. After I was discharged, Mac walked up to me. Hello, I was wondering if you would like to come to my place for a bit. I really need human company right now. Yeah, sure. I need human company too. Someone to joke with would be nice. Before I go on, I would like to mention that you/Vaxra helped me a lot with this story, as he's very good with details. He helped me type it up while I was on break. I think the park has a crisis situation on its hands. It's getting closer to Halloween, and while that may sound cliché, it has undoubtedly led to increased activity in the park. More Mickeys have been spotted. 2 suits have been targeted personally to the point where they are unable to work. More strange anomalies have been detected, and a lot of guests are mentioning that they are feeling watched. An unavoidable increase in missing people have been reported, from Small World, fuck that demonic bullshit, to Dinosaur to that Peter Pan ride. The Peter Pan ride seems particularly malevolent, as it's going after private investigators specifically. I met one of these investigators, you/Vaxra, who commented on one of my posts about needing help. Steven and I had some free time off, so being suits, we went into the park after hours for a cryptid hunting spree. He had his scimitars, and I borrowed his machetes for the hunt, and we both had AR-15 strapped to our back. Now, we can't actually kill them due to some unholy trait, but we can damn well incapacitate them. We were running back to the entrance when we saw something weird. A Mickey. We froze. Everything about this was wrong. Its smile was too wide, with black, bottomless pits as an excuse for eyes. Its ears were shredded in places, and its arms and legs were stretched to unreal proportions. The words it said to me sent shivers through my body, like my ears wanted to shrivel up and die at the sound of its voice. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Come inside, you'll have fun inside. And with a snap of its neck, it disappeared, only a white and black photograph in its place. Stephen was the first to snap out of his stupor, shakily walking over to where the cryptid was and picking up the photograph. What was in the picture turned his face ghost white. Stephen, what is it? He handed me the photo, and I immediately radioed in for backup. It showed a male in the center of a satanic circle, surrounded by what looked like dismembered Mickey animatronics and bones. The most horrifying thing? He was smiling at the camera. Almost half an hour later, we had arrived at Old Discover Island. We had identified the cavern from his comment on Part 4 as somewhere under the lake, and lo and behold, there was hole leading under lake, with only a sign to mark the entrance. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. That circle turned out to be Mickey surrounding a calmly-looking Vaxra, with his hands clutched together holding who know what. We've had a couple of bait situations before, so we thought it was a ruse. That and this dude was smiling in the picture, so it was safe to assume that he was the bait. What do you think, Steven? Should we go ARs or blades? Vaxra looked up at us, confused for a moment. Then he realized what we were saying. Let's go ARs. He spoke up. I'm not the one you should be focused on. There are demons in your face. Shoot them. Steven wasn't having it. Nice try, bitch. But a talking cryptid is still a cryptid. I'm not a cryptid. I'm investigating a family's disappearance on your Peter Pan ride. Right. Josh, let's get this fool. 3, 2, 1 dash. Would a cryptid have this? He unclasped his hands and showed us a glowing crucifix, a now dimming crucifix, as it was. We were going to enter the circle when we realized he was telling the truth, but then he froze, a look of sudden terror on his face. One of the Mickey heads chuckled and rasped, just walk away, and he lives. Make one move, and he dies. Wouldn't want that to happen now, would you? Parts of all the animatronics flew up from the ground, assembling themselves into a dozen rusty Mickeys, all eyes on us. I looked at Steven, concerned, having encountered very few hostage situations. Igor radioed in, I got this, and then dropped 4 of them in quick succession from behind us. He tried to shoot the others, but they simply melted into shadows and reformed behind Vaxra. Ribs burst from the stomach of the Mickey right behind him, and we thought he was over. Suddenly, he broke through the ribs and leaped behind us. He whipped out a fan with runic symbols and threw it at the Mickey, which crumpled and broke on contact. At this point, there were 3 Mickeys coming from the right to try to get us, and we were shooting at them with no luck, as they kept melting and reforming to avoid our bullets. Steven got 2 lucky shots on 2 separate cryptids, and they crumpled to the ground. With 2 gunmen trained on 1 cryptid, it had no chance. When we were done with our side, we turned to Vaxra's side, and to our complete astonishment, he had eliminated 4 of his, only having 1 left. He was speaking to his cryptid in growling tones, crucifix in one hand and fan in the other. You thought you could end my life here? In this accursed, unholy place. The cryptid was backing away slowly, but at the same time, shooting dark shots of oil at Vaxra. He was shielding himself with his cross, and shot arched rays of purple energy at the cryptid. Hey, we can have some fun. Just put down your fan and put down your cross, and we'll eat Kandiska dash. It never finished its sentence, as Vaxra's fan split into multiple blades, surrounded the cryptid, and pierced it from all sides. He then whispered something, and gold light engulfed the carcass, with nothing in its place. Me and Steven looked at each other and put guns to Vaxra's head. You're coming with us. Half an hour later, we were in the interrogation room with Vaxra strapped to a chair. I got to ask the questions. Who are you? Who are your clients? What were you doing in the park after hours? Did you see anything, E? Will you open your mouth and say something? The whole time he was just staring at us with an amused smile playing on his lips. The smile didn't disappear when his lips kissed my fist. He finally opened his mouth to speak. Names are a powerful thing, sir. But as you've saved my life, you can call me Alex. The names I cannot tell you, though, are my clients. I respect their privacy and their safety, along with the expensive annual passes they have to your park. I couldn't stop a small smirk from coming across my face, as quick as it was. I wasn't trespassing in the park after hours, suspicious as though it may seem. I was riding the Peter Pan ride, and blacked out just as we were flying over London. The missing family was on that ride, specifically in that mini London you know. It looks like they've fallen from a great height. Wendy's hands have almost unnoticeable bloodstains on her hands. A rustling of paper and pencil came from behind me as Stephen wrote down notes. Thank you. We'll look into that. How are you able to do that? Stuff with your crucifix. We've had cardinals in here before, and they have never come close to being able to do that. Some things I am required to keep confidential. Just know that you and me, we fight on the same side. Okay, I can respect that. Are there any other supernatural anomalies you wish to tell us about? Yes. Small World has many, is he all right? My partner had just grabbed the table and was shaking. PTSD. My team has had experiences on that damnable creation. Understandable. Alex had a strangely blank face as Stephen was shaking, but turned back to me and continued. Small World attracts too much creatures, and with rumors flying around of dolls being creepy already, I think it's safe to say that this ride is out of order for now. Peter Pan has something against private investigators and families alike, so that should be taken care of. Lastly, one of the few really bad ones. Adventureland. There's something in there. There's a yellow door that appears in random intervals, and whatever's in there isn't meant to be let out. I can feel a force pushing me back when I get within 5 feet from that door. Do you know what's in it? Stephen had stopped shaking and slumped to the floor, the momentary PTSD flashback taking energy out of him. Unfortunately, we don't know that's in there. Seeing the expertise you've had in this specific field, Walt Disney World gives you full access to the park after hours. To be clear, you'll be warned when we let out a certain Mickey out at night for experimentation. Don't let IT catch you. I got sudden chills as Alex's face lit up with the same smile he had in the picture. I think we both know very well that you know what's behind that door. Some things are required to be kept confidential, sir, and I believe your time here is done. The chief will escort you out. As the chief escorted him out, Alex accidentally bumped into me, and his mouth uttered 3 words. That's not Stephen. 5th story. This story was shared by you/subject errors. I downloaded a cryptid soundboard. A piece of me wishes I hadn't. It was a Saturday night, and my best friend Hazel and I were bored. Being poor teens in a small town, we scraped up some change from around our houses. Told our parents we were going to do our homework and headed to the nearest 24-hour fast food place with Wi-Fi. We got 2 small sodas and tucked into the comfy seats in a back corner booth no one touched. Bam, all the drinks and YouTube videos you could want, and a burger each for $4. In, mostly quarters. Like most nights, we took out our smartphones, plugged in our headphones, and sat there occasionally switching headphone jacks to show each other a particularly funny or weird video. We couldn't send them to each other, we didn't have service. Our parents gave us their old smartphones because any phone can still call 911 with or without service. Hazel's had a big crack across the screen. My camera does not work. We made do. On this night in particular, I was bored. Nowadays, boredom is a state of mind. It no longer means there's a lack of stimulation. It means despite all the things in front of me, ain't a one sparked my interest. On nights like that, I browsed the free section of the App Store. Oh, miss, and over here bored again, miss, and was short for misanthrope. It was the way she teased me when I was in one of those moods. Hazel had this uncanny ability to never be bored. She was always down for anything. Actually, that's probably why she's my friend. My boredom leads me to strange places, and she's always down for the ride. She bat her eyes expecting a witty response, but it just stuck my tongue out at her and locked eyes while I continued to flick all the way down to the bottom of the page. Cryptid soundboard. I clicked on it. The description read, "Ever wondered what a Bigfoot sounds like? How about the difference between a wolf howl and a werewolf? Caution. Some sounds can have side effects." The side effects were written very small, and I didn't bother with them because I figured it was a joke. It did, however, have good reviews, so maybe it was at least a funny joke. I downloaded the app while Hazel showed me a funny reaction video she had watched. The app started up with a small ding. I hadn't expected it, but it had a blurry photo of a Bigfoot. I clicked it. A short human-like yell played. I rolled my eyes. That was boring. I clicked back and scrolled down to a picture of a chimera. I clicked it. The clip hissed and growled and bleated at the same time, like the three animals had all just been thrown in a cage together. I scrolled forward, almost giving up, when the promised side-by-side were wolf/wolf howl clips where. I laughed and Hazel shot me a curious glance. I held up my pointer finger, asking her to wait a second. The first howl I had heard before, but the second was more sing-song, mimicking a wolf sound with a human one layered on top. There was an eerie tone to it and crickets in the background of both, as if they were actually captured in the wild. I showed the app to Hazel and she plugged in, also laughing at the idea. We went through a few more. At first they were cute. The childlike laughter and singing of pixies. The neighing and wet whinny of kelpies. The whir of the Mothman. None of it could be real, but it was a fun concept and had definitely shaken my boredom. The first one to rub me the wrong way was La Llorona. The picture was a woman, her head in her hands. The clip was a woman half screaming, half sobbing, but it was the whipping sound of the grass, as if the person recording was running away, that creeped me out. The Jersey Devil sounded like a bunch of pigeons, if only they clucked at the exact same time. The Loch Ness Monster sounded like a drowning cow. The Chupacabra made me jump out of my skin. It wasn't just the sound of the creature guttural and otherworldly, it was the savage screams of the goat he was devouring. Wow, I said after I showed it to Hazel, it's like maybe this is real. Like this person went around hunting down monsters just to record them. Yeah, isn't that exciting? She said, no way you're still bored. No, but what? She was getting annoyed with me. But that means they are real, I said. She shrugged. We live in the middle of nowhere, it's not like any of them are around here. I blinked slowly, trying to decide if it was worth arguing. Most of these things are supposedly found anywhere. Besides, it isn't real. She laughed and scrolled down again. Angel was the next one. A picture of a cute but generic angel popped up. There was the caution symbol again, and I realized too late Hazel hadn't read the disclaimer. Hazel clicked, and in my right ear I heard the perfect voice. It sounded like the most beautiful singing I had ever heard, but I think it was only a single word. Then my ear started ringing. Hazel turned to me, yanking the headphones out of my ear with a pop of blood across the table. I looked at her to see a thin line of blood rolling out of her ear, and from the warm sensation I guessed I mirrored her. We told our parents, who told the cops, but when we went to show them the app, it was gone. The doctors say my right ear and her left may never regain hearing, and they are unsure what could have done the damage. All I know is with my good ear I listen out for those creatures I now know exist, and if you ever meet an angel, cover your ears. Sixth story. This story was shared by you/Drawable26. Sometimes at night I hear whistling in the woods. I'm what most people refer to as a mountain man. You know, living off the land and working with my bare hands kinda stuff. I know, big shocker, the wild men have access to technology. Well, we're not cavemen, just people who enjoy living in the wilderness. I was always one of those people, until recently anyways. I lived in a small log cabin, cozy enough for a 34-year-old man with a strange interest in carving and wood chopping. Now I wasn't completely out in the wilderness. There was a small town about 7 miles away, but still secluded enough to feel the peace and tranquility of living in nature, not to mention secluded enough to be completely alone. Anyways, one night after finishing putting the chicken and roosters away, I sat on my porch enjoying the stars and moon. As I sat while I lit my pipe, I heard this strange sound, almost like a mix of a bird cooing and a chirping grasshopper. Seeing as how I was the only home for miles, I chalked it up to animals. I mean, what else could it be, right? As strange as the sound was, it was also kind of soothing. After listening for a moment, the whistling stopped quite abruptly. It was strange. The moment the whistling ended, so did the rest of the world's sounds. I couldn't hear the wind blowing or the running stream out back. It was as if someone had hit the mute button on my property. It was so quiet that I could have easily mistaken my breathing for a wailing beast. But just as I was about to question my sanity, suddenly the sounds of the nature returned. I put my pipe out and made my way back inside. After making myself a nice hearty meal you'd expect a wild man to eat, lots of meat, along with a nice hefty glass of bourbon, I began cleaning my kitchen, and as I was about to wrap the leftovers, the cuckoo clock above my stove began, well, cooing. Now that doesn't sound like anything crazy, but the thing is that clock has been busted for years. It's been nothing more than a wall decoration. And as I thought, the clock was still broken. In fact, it wasn't even cooing. It was that whistle I had heard moments before my dinner. And once again as it ended, for a few moments so did my hearing. I chalked it up to a long day of labor, so I decided I'd hit the hay, and that's when things got weird. As I awoke and prepared myself for another day of hard work, I noticed something. The dinner from last night, the one I never got to finish wrapping, was completely gone off the plate. I tried to reason with myself that maybe I had finished it, but yet the plate and saran wrap were both sitting out there on the counter. See, I'm not normally a superstitious person, so I again reasoned with myself that I had finished it before having the chance to wrap it. After all, that glass of bourbon was pretty large, so I brushed it off and went on my day. I went to let out my poultry for feeding when I saw, well, a pretty fucked up sight. My chickens had been completely butchered. It wasn't the fact my chickens were dead that made me unsettled. I mean, I've lost plenty of them to wild animals looking for something to eat. But that's the thing. None of my chickens had any signs of being eaten of any kind. They were all mutilated. Some were impaled along the picket fence used to keep them in, and not neatly. No, they were so torn up and mutilated that the shiny white would have been dyed with the red crimson blood of my poor birds. 2 of them were completely hollowed out. No bones, no organs, no muscle tissue. It was no more than an empty sack of chicken skin. Whatever did this wasn't looking for a meal. It was in it for the thrill of the hunt. After that, I decided some precautions needed to be taken, so I took a trip down to town. Luckily for me, a technical store was open not too long ago, so I decided I'd purchase some security cameras. "Hey, you're that wild forest dude who lives in the woods, right?" the young clerk asked as he rang up my items. He had to be no more than 18, the classic, old enough to grow facial hair, but not enough to grow a full beard look. Grungy hippie clothes, and he gave off a strong aroma of purple haze and pineapple express. Reminds me of when me and my brother would grow pot in our backyard in high school. Despite being a goofy high schooler, he was a good kid, had a very love not war vibe to him. I let out a laugh as I reached for my wallet. Didn't know I had that much of a reputation. He returned my laughter and quickly replied, "Dude, you're a legend around school. Everyone out here is too formal, you feel me? You though, living off the land, doing things with your own 2 hands, shit's fucking hardcore, bro," he exclaimed, almost as if fanboying over me. I looked at his shiny name tag, which read Spliffy. I chuckled at the nickname. I proceeded to complete my transaction when he asked me, "What's with all the tech then?" I paused for a moment, leading to him continuing his question. "My man, you've been living the frontier life since I was in pre-K. Why the sudden change up?" "Been hearing some noises from the woods, not like anything I've heard before. Messed up some of my birds pretty bad," I said as I handed the boy my credit card. "So just some weird sounds then," he continued, running my card through the scanner. After a brief pause, I decided to mention the strange anomaly of the world going mute. "Well, it's not exactly a strange nose, just a whistle, but for some reason every time the whistling stopped, I can't hear anything but my breathe." When I said that, Spliffy got rather concerned. "Dude, you're dealing with a woodstalker." I raised my eyebrow. "A what?" He got eager, no doubt ready to tell me of what I could only assume was a cryptid, which of course he did. A woodstalker, or a tree skin prowler as it's known in Indian folklore. It's believed that they were said to be the great omen for forest and woodlands areas. I looked at the boy before beginning to ask my own questions. I tried to convince myself that I was simply indulging his tale, but deep down a part of me believed it could be what I was dealing with. So then what's with the whistling? He continued as he began bagging my items. Well, according to the Native Americans, whenever hunters or gatherers would go for an expedition and never returned, it was followed by a long whistle, which was then followed by complete silence. The Indian tried connecting the dots, and they came to the conclusion that the whistle would come either right before or after disposing a victim. Well, I'll keep a lookout for walking trees then. I laughed as I placed my card back in my wallet and grabbing my items. Yeah man, good luck. You're really gonna need it, he said rather seriously. I left and entered my truck, the whole ride debating this would stalker, then my sanity for even entertaining the idea. I arrived home and got to work on setting up the cameras, making sure to put an extra behind the house towards the woods. The rest of the day went completely fine, assuming I had scared off whatever creature was around, so I enjoyed a nice meal and a tall glass of ale. It wasn't until later it all went wrong. I awoke to the sound of my dog CRYPTIDS barking violently, once again followed by the now disturbing whistles and its preceding silence. I instantly ran to my camera monitors and witnessed the strangest thing. Curtis had been sitting at the edge of the tree lines, just sitting there, for 3 hours. It wasn't until I saw a large rustle around in the woods that he started barking, then running into the woods. I ran to my room, grabbing my rifle along with a box of shells, and rushing to the door. Curtis was the only family I had, and I'd be damned if I let some tree monster take him. I bursted open the back door, damn nearing busting it off its hinges, and made a break to the woods. After about 10 minutes, the whistle returned, louder than ever before. Despite the following silence, I could still see the bushes tussling in front of me. I quickly raised my rifle, slowly releasing the safety, and out came Curtis. I took a quick sigh of relief and went to pet him. However, he just kept running back to the house. Before I could follow, I heard another wailing, but it wasn't any animal or monster. It was a human cry. I quickly rushed to the sound as quick as possible. Might be a monster out here, but I'm not letting anyone die on my property. The screaming got louder and louder till I finally reached the source. It was the kid from the electronics store. He had been completely mutilated. His chest was caved in, his legs were broken to hell, looked like a graph, and his left forearm had been laying on the right side of his body. I rushed over to the kid, kneeling down to comfort him. Let's be honest, there was no way he was making it out of these woods alive. Jesus Christ, kid, what are you doing out here? You know what was out here, he wheezed, coughing up thick red blood. Wanted to help, he said between blood-gargled coughs. He reached up with his one still attached arm and grabbed my collar, pulling me closer to him. You need to run, he whimpered, just in time for me to hear before the haunting whistle came, directly behind me. I turned around, quickly stumbling back as I came face to face with it. The thing looked like something straight out of a J.R.R. Tolkien novel, broken twigs and branches twisted to make the form of the creature's body, its cracked, jagged bark seeming to form some kind of scales or armor, or something. The most disturbing part was its face, the same one I was looking down to as it was telling me to run. And no, this isn't some Leatherface/Ed Gein situation. The thing didn't steal the kid's face, more like copying it. It had been carved into some sort of tribal mask, and it was disturbingly accurate. You could see the pain and suffering on the boy's wooden face. I was stuck on my ass, paralyzed from fear as this thing slowly limbered towards me, snapping wood echoing through the woods with each motion. As I slowly began to push myself away from the creature, I was reminded I wasn't completely screwed, as I felt my palm brush against my rifle. I quickly scooped it up, aiming for the beast, and fired. It recoiled, letting out a hiss of pain. Seeing as it actually had an effect, I continued to fill it with buckshot, till there was a pile of empty shells at my feet. Not wanting to test fate, I balled my ass back home and fortifying it to the nines. The next morning, I had called the police about the boy's body. When I brought them to the location of the body, which was still there, but not the creature's, not even a branch left behind. They chalked it up to a rather gruesome bear attack. Wasn't he gonna argue them on it? What would have happened if I told her the truth anyways? Probably would have been put behind bars or in a padded wall. I have moved to the city since then, a decent apartment on a real high floor and far from any forest. That thing is still out there, and I have a feeling it's never left my trail to begin with. 7th story. This story was shared by u/HLLBLzer310. The creature on New Year's Eve. So, I had a very strange thing occur late in the evening, or early in the morning if you prefer, on New Year's Eve. I had been out at a party drinking and smoking a bit, as is customary. At around 2:30 a.m. few friends, I'll use nicknames for them, Mads, and Max, and I left the party we were at and headed back to our town. We had kept the roach of a blunt from the party, and we decided to pull into the resident parking lot outside the condo complex I live in to finish it off. Not 2 minutes after we spark it, a man comes stumbling up the road that runs through the parking area. This road, for reference's sake, runs through the parking area and down a hill to a few houses. I know pretty much all the people who live down that small hill. The man didn't really perturb me or my friends, so we kept smoking. Then a minute later, a high school girl wearing no shoes or socks and just a short, skimpy dress comes walking up the hill. At this point, I was starting to wonder what kind of weird party was going on at one of my neighbors' houses. The girl walked through the parking area without a word and then turned onto the main street and headed up it. At first, we assumed we wouldn't bother worrying because, despite her lack of shoes, she was walking straight and seemed to be keeping to herself. That's when things got strange. After she had disappeared from sight up the street, she came bolting back down as fast as she could given her shoeless situation. When she reached my friends and I, she slowed down, but looked very spooked. Mads asked her what had happened, and she stepped away from her at first. Then, with horror-stricken eyes, she pointed up to the main street. We all turned and looked, but there was nothing in our direct line of sight. Max and I decided we'd go up the street to investigate what was scaring this girl so much. We made sure Mads and the girl got in this car, as she was the designated driver of the evening, and lock it. Max and I went up the main street, and for 5 minutes we saw nothing. Then we passed under the one street light on the upper portion of the street. This street light has a stubborn and nerve-wracking tendency to turn off at night once you pass under it. To my dismay, it turned off, leaving us in total darkness save for the faint glow of a light at the end of someone's driveway. This light was very low to the ground. That's when we saw it. Something that looked like a naked person but wasn't quite human waddled down the street toward us. It moved as though it were half squatting, and because of this, its hands dragged along the ground as they hung limp at its sides. I couldn't make out its face, and Max told me later that he couldn't either. It was also making a throaty gurgling noise, as if it was almost choking on something. All we could do in the moment was turn and run as fast as we could back down the street. I ran right into my house and Max ran to his car. I could hear the car screeching out of the parking area. I locked the door and didn't even bother to look outside to see if the thing was still coming down the street. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to our channel Horror in Detail. Drop your opinions/suggestions in the comments section, and like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm.